Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So let us continue our video lectures on machine learning for image processing. Let us continue the discussion on the classification aspects in general now. So we have discussed about Bayesian classification. We have seen how to estimate the likelihood, either parameters of the likelihood through ML or map estimation, or the likelihood itself by Bayesian estimation in the last classes. In this class, let us see to understand what kind of features are important in image processing. Okay, especially as we have seen the overall picture of a automated classification or automated decision making requires pre-processing, feature extraction, followed by classification. We have spent some reasonable time on introducing and understanding a classification framework, Bayesian classification framework, namely. Now let us see little details or more details on feature extraction in images, especially as we would like to apply these classification methods for many image processing applications. So I am sharing the screen now. So hope you are able to see the slides.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a minute. Let me open. Right. So now let us discuss on the like extracting features from images, especially if we have some images of the class samples we would like to classify. What kind of features are of interest? Okay, that's our main discussion in this class. Even you can consider the example of fish classification or more general classification frameworks such as face recognition or human non-human classification and so on. Yeah, request the students to mute yourself if there is noise from your side. Okay, I'm assigning Sumant as co-host. Okay, so now the question is what kind of features to look for. So can you give some thoughts on what kind of features do you think are important? So we can go back to our discussion on classification, fish classification, or more general case of face recognition. So can you think of what kind of features should we extract? Say based on the faces in the given images, I want to recognize, okay, who is the person. Assume that there is a image here, okay, and there are some faces here, okay. So there is one face, face 2, face 3, and so on. Okay, so I just want to recognize who is this, okay, and so on. So what kind of features do you suggest me to extract, and where should I look for features? These are the two key questions to be asked. So any thoughts on it? See, in the whole image, face may not be there everywhere. So I need to find out where the face is. Okay, especially if I have a targeted application like face recognition, okay, or object detection, I will first try to localize the object. Okay, there are some applications where there are no targeted objects. Okay, but nevertheless, features are important. Say, assume that I have one image like this. Okay, I have another image like this. These two images are obtained at two different shifts of a camera, and I want to stitch them to make a panoramic view of the scene. Okay, so there may be some common regions. So the question is, what kind of feature should I look at? Okay, which are the regions, prominent regions I can look for features? Any answers? Are the questions clear?
Yes, sir.
Is the question clear? Yeah, assume that, see, this is the scenario I'm talking about. Okay, assume that we have two images wherein there is some common region from image 1 to image 2. Okay, I want to make a stitching of them to make a panoramic view. This is one such problem. Or I want to identify, say, where this peak of the hill is. Okay, in different images, I want to find out the peaks of the hills. Okay, that's a different problem. So many of the image processing problems where you need a automated recognition, decision making, or detection, you need to identify some correspondence, or do you need to identify some like similarly looking like patches or objects. Okay, the question now is, how do I find them? What are the bases in which I can say that these are the points which will help me to match the images, both images well, or both regions well, or these are the regions, these are the features I should look for matching, say, for making a decision. Any thoughts on it? Anybody want to answer this or guess this? Which are the regions should I look for matching across different images?
So we should look at local changes in intensity.
Okay, very good. We should look at the changes in intensity, because wherever there are changes in intensity, it is likely that, okay, the similar changes may also occur for the same object in another image. Okay, so changes in intensity are captured in image processing or mathematically by what? See, if I want to identify, yeah, by
gradient, sir.
By gradients. Very good. So high gradient regions are the ones which are of importance. Fine, this is very good answer. But see, I may find high gradient regions also at several locations. Okay, so can you even give a more specific regions where there may be easy to start with? See, assume that if I have, for example, okay, two, hope I may have it. Yeah, see here. So this is also a, this is the region where you can see that there is a high gradient region. Okay, so should I look? So here, if you see, along all the edges, you have high gradient regions. But even more specifically, if I want to identify, okay, a point that distinguishes itself from the neighborhood, okay, which point do you suggest? Any idea by looking at this?
Corners.
Corner.
Yeah. So corner points are referred to as key points or feature points, where I can find out better features to match across different images. Okay. And with irrespective of the scale, intensity variations, and so on. Okay. Because see, even at the edges, I like along the edge, if you move, okay, there is a roughly it looks same. So it is very difficult to establish, okay, between this point of the edge and this point of the edge, it may look exactly same. Okay, and this point also may look exactly same. The gradient change may be same here, here, and here. If I look at patch around this, whereas the corner point will help me to very easily distinguish it from the neighborhood. Okay, so this is one very important finding, or the clue that image processing people widely use, computer vision researchers use for identifying distinct point from the neighborhood or the key point from the neighborhood to perform the task like, okay, recognition, detection, okay, matching, and so on. Okay, so hope you are understanding the terminology I'm bringing now. Okay, so now the next question is, this is fine. Visually, I say that corner points are of importance. Okay, but how do I mathematically quantify and say that these are the points of importance to me? Okay, in a given image. Can anybody guess or give me some hint? See, how do I define a corner point? In terms of saying that mathematically it is the point, okay, that is the corner point.
A point which has changed in both x and y directions.
Okay, so the point which has variation or variance of intensity values, okay, variation of intensities across all directions in some sense. Okay, x and y you have mentioned, but we assume that if you move from this point to this way, okay, or this way, or in any direction, we assume that there is a change in some the variation of the intensity to the initial patch to the final patch after movement is high. Okay, is that fine or not? Okay, that is how the corner point or a distinguishable point or the key point in images are defined. Those are the points people look for identifying good features in an image. Is this fine? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so even if I bring in humans later, I will show some images of human. See, even in a human, what will happen if there are hands here, okay, or if there are legs here, okay, so those are the points where you can see that there is a good change in intensities. Okay, so you can easily, or there is a head here, okay, so you can easily distinguish the regions or the corner, the patches around the corner points will help me to uniquely identify where this particular patch is there in a given image. Okay, so this is fine. So the initial thought about where to look for is we look usually in the highly distinguishable points from the neighborhood. Okay, and those are usually are the corner points. Okay, so now the next question is, which are the around that point, what should we look for? What kind of feature should we look for? That is the next question. What do you think? What kind of feature should I look for? Say I have taken a patch here. Should I only take the intensity values in that patch and then try to match across two images? See here, okay, this is the patch I have. Okay, and then here also one patch is there. Oh, I just want to find the top of the hill. Okay, and say if I take a patch here, I take a patch here, I can match them. But see, if I look from different views, okay, then the top of the hill doesn't look exactly same. Or if I take the images at two different scales, or that means one is from the near and other is far, okay, they may not look similar. So how to now find out some good features, okay, given a region wherein I would like to look for? What kind of features do you can think are the good features for matching across images? Any idea?
Should be
Maybe
invariant to the rotation and scale and intensity.
Yeah, right. It has to somewhat invariant to view. Okay, invariant to rotation. Fine, somewhat invariant to rotation. We can't make completely invariant because of the limitations we have. Okay, but reasonably invariant. Okay. What else?
instead of taking intensity directly, we can take the difference in intensity of adjacent pixels.
Good. So let us take the gradient values. What do you mean by difference in intensity? Means it is gradient values, right? So you can take the gradient values and match. See, even the gradient values may not be exactly same if these two are across different scales. Okay, and if these two are taken from different views. So later I will be showing some images. Okay, I want to find out where the cat is. Okay, cat may look from the front, from the back, or from the only tail of the cat may be visible, and so on. Such complex situations will occur. So now how do I find it? Or at least partially I would like to see if tail of the cat is alone present. Okay, then I should say that at least say out of say 10 feature points in the cat, okay, I'm able to match very confidently one feature point. Okay, so at least based on that I can say that this is quite confidently I'm able to match. So it's likely that it is a cat. Okay, while I'm not able to match this point with any other class. Okay, so what kind of features should we look for while matching in such scenarios or even in this kind of scenarios? That's the question. Okay, so let us look for, okay, let me move on to this slide, over the slides, okay, to discuss these things now. So the same thing, whichever I have discussed, I will discuss in more detail. Okay, so I will not spend much time, okay, in the concepts where you may be reasonably familiar, okay, but please stop me in case if you're not very clear on any of the concepts that I'm discussing now. See, there are two kinds of features people look for. One are local features, other are global features. Okay, as I said, see, if I want to find out a cat is there or not, what we say, so if there is a cat, okay, so I may have the tail of the cat, okay, head of the cat. So different key points are different feature points at different regions of the cat I may take. Okay, and each of them may independently give me some assessment of cat. Those are all called local features. Global features means what? I will somehow assimilate all these things or match image by image. Okay, I have a cat template here. Okay, this is template. Okay, and then I have this template. Okay, and I have a search image. Okay, in this search image, I will try to see, okay, wherever this template is matching. Okay, either through correlation or through minimum distance or whatever. Okay, the search image may be a little bigger. Okay, so I will match across the whole region. Okay, and with say moving this template at different regions. Okay, wherever the correlation is high, I say that this is the correct. Here is the cat. Okay, so that is referred to as global features because I am trying to find one set of features for the whole image. Okay, for matching. Or if there is a cat, I may find out, okay, 5-10 key points. Okay, wherever the tail is there, legs are there. Okay, wherever the head is there and so on. Okay, each point will give me around that point, there is a patch. That patches will give me features. Okay, those each individually I will try to find out. The head may be here. Okay, now tail may be here. Okay, I don't bother about exactly cat being positioned in the same way in the other image. Okay, same is the case with any other recognition task. Let it be human. Okay, let it be cars or aeroplanes or any image objects. Okay, so usually in the image processing there is a initially there was huge discussion between which local features are better and global features are better. Okay, there were several methods which come up with global features first and then local features, and then there are some methods which will use both of them. Okay, hybrid features, local and global. Okay, some examples of global features can you tell? So they are here anyway, but I just want to hear from you. Examples from global features, for global features first and then local features. Can one of you tell some example? Can few of you tell some examples for global features? Yeah, please tell quickly.
Yes, sir. Image histogram as it.
Yeah, image histogram, because you take for the whole image, okay, one histogram vector. If you take like that, okay, if you take say histogram vector 0 to 255, okay, it's a 255 dimensional vector. Okay, and then this will become a global feature. Okay, it's a vector of dimension 255 or 256 cross 1. Okay, so this is histogram. Fine. Okay, so any other features? See, I will later define histogram of orientation gradients. As histogram gives the intensity distribution across the image, gradients, as we thought, just discussed just now, gradient will give me a information that is invariant to intensity variations. Even if I may take the image at high intensity or low intensity, okay, or some intensity variations I may have across the images I have captured. So when I take the gradient, I'm taking the pixel differences, so that will somewhat normalize the intensity differences. And then orientation of gradients will even normalize the intensity differences. Okay, because what I will be taking is, okay, tan inverse of, okay, so gy by gx. This is the orientation of gradient. where gy is the vertical gradient and gx is the horizontal gradient. Because unlike in original signals, where you have actually gradient only in across, okay, across, say if this is f of x, the signal is written as f of x, okay, the gradient is df by dx. Okay, so unlike here, okay, gradient in images, if you want to find out, you will have a gradient in x direction, okay, gx, gradient in y direction, gy. Okay, so this is the fx, gradient in say, yeah, df or delta f. Okay, so in our notation, we can write this as the fx. Okay. Okay. So is this clear? So this gy by gx will further normalize the intensity variations. And if I have the gradient angle, see, gradient angle will give me what? At any given location, what does the angle of the gradient gives me? Say, assume that I am trying to find angle of gradient here. Okay, in a given location. What information does it give me? Here, if I want to find the gradient angle, assume that. Okay, what information do you think it gives me?
H direction.
Yeah, it gives the direction of it. Okay, so and hence it is of good importance. Okay, in understanding. So if there is a person, for example, here, okay, so I will be easily able to get the vertical there may be many gradient angles having the 90 degrees. If I consider vertical direction as 90 degrees. Okay, so now if I bin them, overall I see that the histogram of orientation gradients, okay, 90 degrees will be dominant. And I can say that more confidently that it may be a human. Okay, so if you want to compare humans and horse, okay, I think there is one assignment that is given to lab students, if I'm correct. Okay, they are classifying humans and horses. The horses will have a dominant 0 degree orientation, okay, for the edges, whereas the humans will have dominant 90 degree orientation for the edges. Okay, so like that histogram of orientation gradients, which I will define little more elegantly later, is a very important global feature. Other important global feature is principal component analysis, which I will be discussing later. This is also very important feature that we can extract from images or even from the signals. Okay, this essentially comes from the covariance matrix of the data, and the spread of the covariance matrix in some sense can be easily captured through these principal components, and this gives us good information about the data as a whole. Okay, that's we'll see later. And now let us come to what are good local features. Okay, again, local features, when we say, okay, so first question is where should we look for? Because they are local features. As we said, high contrast points, okay, or the highly distinct points from the neighborhoods or the corner points. Where should we look for? High contrast points. Okay, that means corners. Okay, as an example. And what to look for? Again, the local features. Okay, what kind of features? It can be either histogram of orientation gradients or patch histogram. For that patch alone, we find histogram. Or there are some simple features like Haar features, okay, Fisher features, and so on. So they are more elegant in some applications. Okay, so we'll see this. So anyway, histogram, I hope all of you have, all of you know. So can one of you who are not in the lab can quickly explain me what is the slide showing? I wish to get quick answers so that we can move on. What is this slide showing?
The histogram of dark pixels means the region where the dark pixels are more than bright pixels, I guess.
Right. So based on the image intensity, you can see here if it is darker, the histogram is more concentrated. The number of pixels, okay, taking intensity values will be more towards 0. Okay. So and then 0 to 50 they may be. So if it is completely dark image, completely bright image towards the right side. Okay, where it may be 100 to 250. Okay, and this is a in the middle range. This image is what? So this can be referred to as high contrast image. where the intensity values are stretched across the whole pixel range 0 to 255. So usually for feature extraction, which image do you think is better? If I want to do some automated counting of the seeds here, okay, so which image do you suggest me to go for?
High contrast,
High
because you
Contrast.
can identify the objects.
Having very high contrast, so that the pixels intensities are distinguished well between like within the image. See, if I have only this kind of image, first image or second image or third image, okay, if I want to get from these two to high contrast image, any method, so can you people suggest? Again, I request those who are not taking lab to answer quickly. These comes under pre-processing. But however, this pre-processing is also very important, okay, to before feature extraction, because if you directly do feature extraction here, I don't think you will be able to get better features, or you will be able to extract accurately the features. Okay, yeah. So what, any method can you suggest for improving the contrast of an image? Any guess?
We can take the minimum value and maximum values of the brightness and then stretch it to 0 and 255, so to get a high
Yeah, very
contrast
good.
image.
Correct. Okay, so you can just simply stretch, okay, image intensity minus I minimum, okay, in some sense, by I, okay, maximum minus I minimum, okay, so in some kind of normalization only into 255. So what I'm essentially doing is, okay, I'm moving the minimum intensity to 0, maximum intensity to 255. Okay, so this is modified. So I hat is equal to. So original intensity is being modified to current intensity values at given each xij location or xy location. Okay, so this is a simple procedure. This is referred to as contrast stretching. Okay, what does the contrast stretching mean? So if I have like this, okay, if this is say x and this is y, this is image intensities. Sorry. If this is current initial intensities and these are the final intensities, okay, I had also modified intensities. Initially, all intensities are concentrated in this region. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to stretch this 20 to 255 range. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. So I mean, I map to 0. Okay, I max, I map to 255. Okay, so often people, instead of saying 255, they will just rename it normalization as 1. Okay, or 1. So they will put 0 to 1 as the range. Okay, normalized range, and then do it. Okay, so in that case, here it will be 1. So is this clear or not? This very simple procedure referred to as contrast stretching. Is this clear? This is linear contrast stretching. Because I am linearly stretching it. Okay, I can even do non-linearly or piecewise linearly. Okay, piecewise linear means what? Say, assume that, okay, I know that some region is of importance to me. Okay, I decide even though the intensities are in this region, I say that this region is of very importance to me and this region is of not that importance to me. Okay, so what I'm doing now, I am stretching this one region, okay, by more slope, another region by lesser slope. Okay, so then what's happening? In a sense, I will be okay. Also, in essence, what I'm doing, up to here I'm stretching more. Okay, from here to here I'm stretching less. So this is also linear contrast stretching only, but piecewise linear. Okay, is this clear or not? Okay. I can
Yes, sir.
decide the way I want to stretch based on my interest. Okay, which object I want to look for. See, in this, dark objects are of not interest to me, assume that. Okay, bright objects are of interest, then I will stretch differently. Okay, if the dark object is different, differently, all objects are, if they are of interest, differently. Okay, So the problem here is, say, assume that I can do this kind of stretching, fine. But assume that the image is noisy. In this bright image, okay, there is one dark pixel. Okay, so there is one very dark pixel here. Okay, so what will happen? What will be the Imin now? And what is the Imax for this image? What is Imin?
0.
Right, 0. So now there is one, say, at least some pixels, okay, some small group of pixels with 0. Okay, or I may have some dark pixels here and there. Okay, it's just noise. Salt noise, pepper noise people call. Okay, now if this is corrupted by this kind of noise, okay, do you think my linear contrast stretching will help me?
No, sir, because minimum and maximum are already 0 and 255.
Right. So in that case, what do you suggest?
We
In
remove the
such
noise
case-
first and then do the stretching.
Yeah. What's that?
We can remove the noise.
Okay, fine, good. So if you can remove the noise, it is fine. You can remove the noise and do. Okay. But if it is not very easy, even if you remove noise, instead of here, it may come here. Okay, so that means slightly it may, so it may distribute up to here. That's all. In the initial regions. Okay, it may have come up to here. So it may or may not be possible always. So there is a more elegant way of doing contrast enhancement or stretching is through histogram equalization. What this histogram equalization says is, so assume that this is the image matrix. Okay, so if this is the image matrix, so then what the histogram equalization does is, it tries to map the histogram of given image to a roughly uniform histogram. See, in this case, if I want to map roughly to a uniform histogram, what will happen? See, if I take any bin, okay, so up to here, assume that one bin. Okay, let me put with another color. Okay, up to here, one bin. Okay, here another bin, another bin, another bin, and like this. Okay, assume that there are a few bins. In each of the bin, okay, after histogram equalization, I should get roughly same count or same frequency or same probability. Okay, that will ensure that even though the exactly it is not uniform histogram, okay, across the bins, the number of pixels that, okay, the having intensity values in that bin are roughly constant. So that is obtained through what a procedure referred to as histogram equalization. For that, what may happen? See, if there are, since there are only very small number of pixels here, okay, so initially I find out the cumulative distribution. See, this if I consider as PDF, the histogram if I consider as PDF, that is P of, okay, X or P of I, right? So the histogram, assume that normalized histogram is the PDF of the image. Okay, intensity PDF of the image. Now, what I do, I will first find out a cumulative density function. Okay, cumulative density function means, see, you people heard of cumulative distribution function, I hope, right? So you know about cumulative distribution function. So it finds, it gives me, okay, initially it's all 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so rough, there is a boost here because of this, and then there is an increase here and then saturates here. So this is the cumulative density function of the original image I. So C of I will call for time being. Okay, so now what I want to do is, I want to make, rather than to target for directly bringing this to uniform density, I want to bring this to roughly linear CDF. Okay, C of I. So for doing that, what I do, I will try to see that in each bin, the count is roughly same. Okay, or the increment in count is roughly same. So from here to here, if I count, I get some count, some reasonable count, right? So that I will, so that this will come here, and there will be a gap, and this will come here. Okay, something like this. So what I'm trying to say is, instead of stretching just by intensity index, I will stretch based on the number of pixels taking that index. Okay, so that is based on the frequency of the pixels taking that index or the intensities. Okay, so that is referred to as histogram equalization. Okay, so now the process is find out for the given image, first find out the histogram, normalize the histogram, that is the probabilities. Okay, so here total how many pixels are there? So I assume that it is 5 cross 5, 25. Okay, so you can make the normalized histogram. After that, what we can do is from this normalized histogram, okay, what I will do, I will try to make this cumulative distribution function. I think some slide is missing here. So you can make cumulative distribution function. C. So we will try to write the current intensity is equal to C of R into into 255. Yeah. So now if I do that, then what will happen? See, initially, as we have seen, even here, if you see in the lab, I have made a video wherein we have worked out for this exact case for the cumulative density and then the histogram, like the equalized intensities as well. Okay, so there you can see the exact values, but let us see now if we can make the expression and understanding clear. See, previously, here, whichever is R equal to, say, R1, let it be equal to 0. Okay, R2, let it be equal to 1. R3, let it equal to 2, and so on. Okay, so let this be the 8 pixels. Okay, so 8 intensities. Okay, so we have actually intensities ranging from 1 to 8 here. Okay, so again, let us bring the intensities here also 1 to 8. So what I am writing is the possible intensities here. Okay, R1 equal to 1, R2 equal to 2, R3 equal to 3, and so on, and R8 equal to 8. Now the question in histogram equalization is, see, initially I have the image like this. Now based on the frequency of this occurrence of 1, okay, after equalization, this intensity 1 has to be where? Okay, so that means the new index. Previously the index is R. Okay, intensity index. Intensity was R. Okay, here intensity now modified intensity is S. Is S. So what should be S of with which has a high contrast or histogram equalized for the histogram equalized image? That is the question. So how do we do is based on the cumulative histogram. The reason is cumulative histogram will tell me, okay, if you see here, there is a more number of pixels at, okay, R equal to 1. Again, lesser number of pixels at R equal to 2. Okay, and even smaller, and so on. Now, after, say there is a gap here. Okay, after a gap, again, there is a big number of pixels. Okay, so in enhanced one, what may happen? There may be at R equal to 0 itself, there may be 1, but there will be a gap here. Okay, and then there will be, these things will get crowded here. Okay, and then there may be again gap and will come here. So the reason being, what will happen if you see roughly in any region, okay, the number of pixels having falling in that region will be uniform. Okay, so that can be achieved through this. So this is the transformed or modified intensity. And with this modified intensity, you can again compute C of S. This C of S more looks like a uniform. Okay, because it is discrete nature, it is close to uniform.
So,
Is this clear?
you're scaling the x-axis, like you're clubbing a set of pixels so that the resultant looks like a uniform distribution.
Right. I am clubbing in such a way that the intensities, wherever there are frequencies high, I am making more apart. wherever the frequency is low, I am clubbing, like bringing them together. Okay, so that the overall in any bin, the number of pixels having the count or the falling in that bin are same, and it looks like a uniform histogram. Correct. Is this clear? The expression is also fine. This is okay. Is this fine? Okay. So
what is
for
C of R here, sir?
C of R is cumulative distribution function. Say C of R, let me write RL is equal to summation over K equal to 0 to L. Is this clear or not? So this is the cumulative distribution function of the histogram of original image. P of R is the density PF. Okay. So here SK, sorry, K is missing. SK is equal to, okay. So where K is varying from 1 to 8 here. So what we are doing is we are redefining the intensities. Okay, and hence the histogram gets redistributed such that the redistributed histogram, okay, is uniform. Is this fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for detailed discussion, I suggest you to refer to the lab video lecture. Okay. So this is regarding the pre-processing. Now, when it comes to feature extraction, as we said, the gradient features are of importance. So how do we extract gradient features? Through convolution. Okay. So through convolution operation with gradient operators. See, usually in one dimension, okay, if you want to extract features or if you want to find out gradient, so assume that the signal is like this. I just want to find wherever there is a sudden transition in the signal. Okay, what should I do? This is anyway discrete signal, assume that. Okay, instead of continuous, if it is continuous signal, anyway, you know well. Okay, if the signal is like this, okay, where if I want to find the sudden transitions, okay, what should I do here? If this is f of x, then I will, the sudden transitions will get highlighted in df by dx. Correct or not? In the gradient, I will see the sudden transitions being highlighted. How do I do it in the discrete signal? Let this be x of n. I just want to find out the locations where there are sudden transitions. Okay, which is the term which will amplify the sudden transitions or the changes in the signal? Can one of you tell quickly?
Sir, we
I need
convolve it with 1 minus 1.
Yeah, very good. So you can convolve with it 1 minus 1. So essentially x of n minus x of n minus 1. Okay, is one such, say if I find out the output signal or the gradient signal, okay, as x of n minus x of n minus 1, this gradient signal will show the changes or the variations with high magnitude. Okay, so in fact, I can, if I am not interested about the sign, I can put even the absolute value here. Okay, otherwise, direct convolution is also good enough. Okay, so to show the changes with sign as well. See, this is equal to those who know about signal processing. Okay, this is equal to convolution operation with, okay, a delta n minus delta of n minus 1. Correct or not? This is exactly same as convolution with, so x of n is the original signal that I am convolving with what signal? 1 and minus 1. Okay, so this is 1 and this is minus 1. If I convolve with this, what I'm getting is gradient signal x, g of n. Convolution operation means what? For those who are not very familiar, okay, convolution means, okay, placing the signal, okay, at this location, at the given location, and trying to multiply element by multiply this with the first one and this with the second one and finding the sum and putting at this location. If I flip and do the same process, I refer to as convolution. If I don't flip and do, I refer to as, if we don't flip the signal and put it at this location and do element by multiplication, okay, and add them and put at this location, the net value, we call it as what?
Correlation.
Correlation. That's all. Okay. So hope you people are following. So if this is 1, for example, okay, and this is -1, what I will do is, okay, here red is there anyway. Okay, please note that red is also there. So what I will do, if this is half, okay, this is 1 and -1. So what I'm doing essentially, okay, half into 1 plus -1 into half. Okay, that is essentially convolution here is 0 or the correlation here is 0. Okay, so convolution ideally, the difference, main difference is operational difference between the convolution and correlation here. Okay, so if I wanted to perform convolution, I will flip and put, so that actually what will happen, okay, the first signal will come, say this will come, so this is 0 and 1, right? So 1 will come at -1, and hence the value of convolution will be half, value of correlation will be 0 at this location, okay, at this location of n or whatever of the signal. Okay, is this clear? The operation of convolution and correlation should be clear to you, because these will form not only feature extraction blocks now, but later important building blocks of the very important class of neural networks referred to as convolution neural networks. Okay, is this clear or not? Anybody has doubt on convolution correlation, especially non-electrical branches students? Okay. So same, whatever we do in 1 dimension, we will do the same in even in 2 dimensions to extract the features. See here in 2 dimensions. Okay. So this is convolution is done through a 2-dimensional filter or kernel now. Instead of 1-dimensional filter, like say 1 -1. Okay, I may have actually -1 1. Okay, this put together will give me 2-dimensional filter or kernel. With this, I will do convolution. I may get here through this, I may get a 45-degree edges. Okay, so I may design now the kernels such that to match to the application or the task I can perform, I need to perform. If I do convolution with this mask, okay, what do you think I will get? If this is the filter or this is the another signal with which if I convolve the original image, see, I'm using the words convolution and correlation together. Okay, so most of the cases it doesn't matter much, because we take the symmetric kernels most of the time. But for, especially for the operational aspects, whenever there is a need of differentiating, I will differentiate. Okay, otherwise don't bother much about the terminology of convolution and correlation. Okay, so correlation, if you understand, that is good enough. Or same as convolution, just that the kernel gets flipped. Okay, fine. So now if I perform the convolution with this, what kind of features do you think I will get? I have an image here. Okay, on the image, I perform the convolution with this. Okay, I will put this kernel here. Okay, I may put this kernel here and so on. Okay, at every location, I do element by element multiplication with this. Okay, sum the elements of this with this and then put the value at the center. What do you think this, what operation does this do on an image? Can one of you tell?
It can detect the gradients because the differences it's taking.
Yeah, it can detect the gradients in which direction. So assume that this is the structure I have. Okay, if I form this is the image.
Gradients along y direction. I mean, gradients, like the direction of gradient will be towards along x-axis, but the edge will be along the y-axis.
So it will find out the gradients in this direction. Okay, in the vertical direction. Okay, because in horizontal direction, okay, it's roughly there is no this itself has no gradient. Okay, this has gradient in horizontal direction, so it will find out the gradients in vertical direction. Okay. Or so in other words, what anyway, leaving about this direction, if you see this also looks like a step, right? So this is all okay. If I just look sketch this, okay, this is all 0, okay, and this is all sorry, this is all -1, this is all +1. So it looks like a vertical step. So it will find out the vertical steps. Is this clear or not? So if this is clear, we will stop with this now. Okay. So what essentially I will be telling now subsequently is different kernels. Now, if you design different kind of features, you can extract in images. Okay. So after that, I will discuss a little more. After discussion of this, I will move on to the feature extraction, especially finding out the how to find key points. Okay, and then how to use it finding better features. Okay, so probably I think 2 more lectures we will complete this aspect and then move on to neural networks discussion. So any questions on this lecture? You can ask. Okay, otherwise probably you can leave.
Sir, when will you upload February 26th lecture? Hello?
Hello. Hi, Yashas. So I think Sir has left now. We'll upload it if it's not there. We'll check it and upload it.
Okay.
So okay, fine. Like I'm just leaving. So I'm ending the class. Let's move to the next class.